Hey, it's 11:40 The Bet and Audacy Sports, and we get to talk a little wrestling right now, but also a little Philadelphia sports, a little heartbreak with the Super Bowl, because joining us now is the voice of Impact Wrestling. Tom Hannifan is joining us, and of course, he'll be here in person in a matter of less than 10 days, February 24th, No Surrender, Sam's Town Live, and the Fallout Night 1 and 2, which is going to be Saturday and Sunday night at Sam's Town Live. So if you're paying attention, that is an entire weekend of Impact Wrestling. You can get your tickets now at Ticketmaster. But Tom, thank you so much for the time. How are you after the devastating loss, my friend?
I appreciate you just reopening the wound. No, I sat back after that game and obviously was disappointed in the outcome. It was a hell of a game. The holding penalty at the end. I commend James Bradbury for owning it and just saying, yeah, I held him. So I respect that. Absolutely. It was just a disappointing ending to what
Do
was a
you
great
really,
game.
though? Do you really?
No, I do. I do commend him for doing that because there's not a lot of guys that would have stepped up and say, "Hey, I made a mistake." So good for him that he did it. Even when I saw the play live, you could have called a penalty, but the way that they called the penalties throughout the game, it was like really like this. It just was not the same way they'd been calling the entire game. And for the conclusion of the biggest game of the year to come down to something like that, it's unfortunate. But congrats to the Kansas City Chiefs. Everybody except Juju Smith-Schuster, that is.
Oh, we're gonna ask about him in a second. I will say one thing though. The thing that got me upset is that the refs called it holding. Because if they would have called pass interference, I could have made the argument that that was uncatchable anyway. Because honestly, it wasn't. That's what made it so much worse that it was 15 yards away from him. There was no way he was going to catch that. But I have to
I
ask
know.
you, that penalty or the field conditions, because I don't know what the hell that was about. What was more frustrating?
It was extremely frustrating. And listen, like there's two teams playing out there, and you didn't see as many issues with the Kansas City Chiefs. So I don't know exactly what was going on there with the equipment for the Eagles, but $800,000 was spent on that field, and everybody was on it like it was a slip and slide. That was bizarre. I've never seen anything like that, except maybe once there was a preseason game at Old Veterans Stadium here in Philadelphia that Brian Billick and the Ravens refused to play on because it was that old turf field and it was bubbling up. So this wasn't even turf. This was a grass field that was getting sunshine and love and care and everything, and it just didn't seem to matter. So that was frustrating through the entire game. The holding penalty at the end, I'm like, okay, I understand why they threw the flag, but you're letting the whole game come down to this. So at the end of the day, man, I'm very fortunate as a Philadelphia sports fan, and that
A
just
bit of
about
a
every one of
run.
my teams has made the championship game this year. And then I've now seen 3 Eagles Super Bowls in my lifetime. They won their first one in my lifetime. Everything is just icing on the cake. So I'm feeling a lot more gratitude than heartbreak at this point.
Listen, I'm born and raised in Cleveland, so I love your perspective with that.
Oh, I am sorry
Um,
for you. Oh
I,
boy.
I know, I know. But hey, we got the Buckeyes, by the way. But I also will speak for Vegas and say this right now: we won't allow it. Next year at the Super Bowl, this will not happen again. I apologize personally to Hassan Reddick, who fell 15 different times that
I
game
know.
and couldn't get any pressure. But you bring up all the success with Philly sports. So before we get into impact, I do want to talk about your Sixers. And I also want to apologize to you and everyone on the show because when the trade happened last year, I obliterated the Sixers. I said, what are you doing? Why are you trading Seth Curry? Doc Rivers isn't the guy. He's never really been the guy. And look at us now. Sixers playing a huge game against the Cavs tonight. But just in general, how you feeling about the Sixers going into the playoffs?
I feel good. I don't feel like they're going to win a championship this year. I feel like they'll fizzle out probably in the second round, something like that. And it's not that this is a bad team. Looking back on that trade Harden for Simmons, quote unquote, I still maintain that that Sixers team before the trade was better than what you're seeing now. James Harden is in better condition and he seems much more motivated and committed. However, the role players within that team before the trade, everybody knew their role. I loved how Andre Drummond was playing as a backup five. It was saving Joel Embiid's body, and you can see over the last handful of years how banged up Embiid really is. So to have a valuable backup five, they're still looking for it. They just signed Dedmon, and he's not the answer. It's unfortunate. Seth Curry was on fire, and with the development of Tyrese Maxey, you could have worked Maxey more into the traditional point guard role and had Seth Curry maybe come off the bench. Who knows? But in retrospect, it sounds like the culture within that Nets program was far
Mm.
worse than we really even understand now. Like to see Kyrie Irving jump ship and then Kevin Durant get traded in the middle of the night. There's something rotten in the Brooklyn Nets. And I don't think we've figured out exactly what it is at this point, but we're probably going to. So I want to be optimistic about the Sixers. I think Joel Embiid is an MVP candidate, but due to his injury issues, he's not been on the court a ton this year. He's putting up crazy numbers, even though he's clearly laboring out there. Still, I just don't think this team is good enough to win a championship. So it's frustrating. What is it going to take? I don't know.
It might be getting rid of Doc Rivers, but that's my agenda I've had for a very, very
That
long
could be
time.
the answer too. Who knows?
And as we transition into talking about Impact Wrestling, and we're talking about all these sports, like I just personally want to know, being a play-by-play guy, obviously there's a ton of differences between calling wrestling as opposed to basketball and football, but for you, what are like some of the biggest ones?
When it comes to calling traditional sports, you can stick with the proverbial X's and O's a little bit more than you can in wrestling. Wrestling, there's so much storytelling that has to take place because our job is to communicate what is happening within the match that reflects the greater stories of the characters of the company, what we're doing, building to a certain pay-per-view event like No Surrender that's going to go down in Vegas. We're very excited about that. But that's the challenge, is that in sports, you can just follow the game sometimes. And yeah, there's storylines like, oh, what's Aaron Rodgers going to do? And is he going to be the MVP or whatever? You can have those discussions. And I look at the team for TNT that covers the NBA. Mike Breen does a fabulous job going in and out of stories, big picture, and then getting into the moments when there's high intensity, high drama within the game. It's very, very challenging to identify those moments. So it's apples to oranges, kind of like anything. And it's why I think so many people look at doing play-by-play of pro wrestling as kind of like, huh? Like, how do you do that? And it's one of those things where you think but you have no idea. There's a lot of intricacies going into it because we understand we're entertainment. It's not exactly what you would see from the National Football League, even though a lot of people will say that's scripted. But
Everything's scripted now. It's not in the
scripted
script
now. But we have some different advantages that other sports just obviously are never going to have. So it's very difficult to explain.
Yeah, no, it's kind of, you brought up the storyteller perspective, and it's like when you look at baseball, for example, like on the radio, like look at some of the best play-by-play guys, and it's because they tell so many stories. Whereas in wrestling, you kind of have to do that. That's a part of the job. Whereas in baseball, for example, if you do, that makes you great. If you don't, you're not going to be one of the best. And then even in the world of wrestling, like transitioning from, your past at WWE into Impact and everything else, like even within wrestling, those are two separate worlds. And I can imagine the verbiage stylistically, like to you, what were some of the biggest things transitioning into being the voice of Impact?
You hit the nail on the head, and it's just certain things in terms of verbiage and presentation that WWE likes to use for its product. So when you're working for them, you would adhere to those rules. That's easy. Now with Impact Wrestling, it's similar styles, but different. And there's different things that they want to do to position their product that I adhere to. But I have a little bit more flexibility to try things, and I definitely am calling more moves, calling more action. That's just something a little bit different with the WWE style of calling matches. So I'm able to do that. But the fun thing for me right now with Impact Wrestling is experimenting and then also understanding the gravity of Impact Wrestling's past and bringing those things forward. There's a lot of things that WWE does that it just speaks for itself, etc. And there are people who unfortunately sleep on Impact Wrestling, and it's my job to wake them up. Me and Matthew Raywalt are doing our best every single week to remind people of the breadth of Impact Wrestling's past, and we're trying to bring it forward as much as we can, and then at the same time doing justice to the phenomenal talent that we have in Impact Wrestling. Like, our roster is so much fun to watch, so much fun to call. So there's just a lot of little differences here and there, but it's all a matter of what you're being asked to do and then delivering it.
And we've been fortunate enough. We had Gail Kim on the show a couple weeks ago.
Love
Last year we
Gail.
talked. Yeah, she's awesome. Heath was awesome too. We talked to him before the end of the year last year, and the thing that kind of stuck out to me in the conversations was you talking about experimenting, and they brought up the freedom of doing this, trying this, at least listening to ideas and that. I just for you personally, whatever part of entertainment you are, having that freedom isn't a given. So how refreshing is it for you to be able to do your job and know, hey, I can try this or I have this thought. Let me see how this plays out. Let me test this out for a couple weeks. And be able to do all that.
It's a double-edged sword in that I'm getting to try a lot of different things. I'm fortunate because Impact Wrestling tapes the bulk of their shows. So there's things that I can try, and if I didn't like it, we have the beauty of post-production. I can go back and fix it, or if something changes within the show week to week, we can make adjustments accordingly so that we're current week to week. So there's just a lot of little things that I've been able to try, and I'm so fortunate that I have a great color commentator in Matthew Raywell. I have an awesome executive producer in Josh Matthews. And then the creative team works their butts off to put all this stuff together, because to put everything together for a compact weekend of tapings and doing, 4 weeks of shows sometimes, it's got to be exhausting. So I commend them. And Scott Demore gives me some really good feedback on a regular basis, positive and negative. This worked, this didn't work. So it's a lot of self-discovery. I'm enjoying the freedom, but with freedom, it's a whole different type of weight on your shoulders. And it's like, it's on you. So
Like
you
you can
just
do
got to
whatever
find
you
what
want.
works.
Okay, but
Yeah, yeah,
where
that's a
do I
good thing and a
start?
bad thing sometimes. You want to find that happy medium, and I'm really glad that I exist in that happy medium right now.
And I want to ask you a really nerdy question. Obviously we've heard it a lot, like with wrestling, that people are in your ear while this is going on. Not that they're not in if you were calling a baseball game or a football game, but just talk me through how difficult, like to you, it's you're used to it by now. You've been doing it for so many years, but like talk me through that process. Like it's just it blows my mind. I kind of can't fathom like someone constantly being in my ear. Like if someone was in my ear right now doing this interview, I couldn't do it. I'd have to be like, "Yo, shut up! I'm doing this."
Yeah, you're human. When someone's talking to you and you're trying to complete a sentence, you feel hindered, and it's really challenging to see through that and get through it and finish your thought. And you want to be respectful and courteous and finish that. I don't have that luxury. If I'm on the air, I got to keep talking because other people are listening. So it's a couple things. It's listening to your broadcast partner and making sure you're continuing the conversation and you're paying attention to what they're saying. It's listening to your producer and understanding that I'm an extension of the producer. But really, that's all my role is on the air, is to make the show pivot accordingly. So I have to pay attention to that. And then, especially within the past year, what you talked about freedom, I've been given a lot of freedom. I haven't had too many people in my ear. I can probably count on one hand the amount of times that someone has come in, but it's always been useful. It's always been good because there's elements of the creative process. Sometimes it's good for us to not know and react organically. And then there's other elements that just through the course of a day in preparation, some things get communicated, some don't. So it's okay for them to feed it to me in the moment, and then I can follow where they're going. So I welcome it. Obviously, I got used to it in a very different scale in WWE. One thing that I did when I was trying to figure out how to do this, because at first it was jarring. I don't know if I've ever told this story, and the people involved probably might not even like this, but I would take phone calls from my then girlfriend. This was when I first started with WWE, and then I would put her on speaker and listen to it and have a conversation with her. But then I would put the TV on at the same time and turn the volume up like just a little so I could still hear it, and then try and follow both at the same time. I don't recommend that practice, but it helped me in the moment. And I was like, oh, I can follow, Sports Center and then also follow the conversation a little bit. So probably not the best thing, but it
Hey,
helps.
but when you're out there and there's thousands of people in the crowd, like, and there's multiple people in your ear, like it's truly like it blows my mind. And I also like, even as I was asking the question and you answered, I'm like, oh yeah, you have another person you're working with. You have to listen to them too.
Well,
Talk.
and if you remember some of my time in WWE, I think the most partners I ever had on commentary at one time was 8.
Good Lord.
So, there's instances where it's you understand your role, and that I might not say a whole lot, and that my job is to just be listening to my producer and let all these other parts fly, and I'm just there to um kind of ping pong people around a little bit, and I don't have to do much. It's just getting in there to kind of steer the conversation. And especially one thing that I don't think a lot of people realize is counts in your ear is we have to get out of this segment in 10, 9, 8. So when you hear that, naturally, like you were just saying, oh, I'm jarred by somebody telling me, talking back at me, and I'm trying to finish my sentence. Imagine if I gave you a countdown right now and you have to hit it dead on at 1 so that we can get into a video package that cuts out our audio at that exact same time. There's so many layers to just broadcasting. Doesn't matter if it's wrestling or not. And I'm fortunate I've had 10 years in a lot of really big global live television opportunities to learn all that stuff.
Tom Hannifan joining us, the voice of Impact Wrestling. No Surrender, Samstown Live, February 24th. Fallout Night 1 and Night 2, February 25th and 26th. A entire weekend of Impact Wrestling. You can go get your tickets at Ticketmaster.com. And one thing I do want to ask you too is, like, for years, you've had the best seat in the house. And with everything, as things have evolved, like the athletes are getting bigger, the big dudes are doing moves that the small dudes are doing, and all this stuff, and everything's just elevated within the sport of wrestling. You ever have the moment where to yourself, you get back to the hotel or you're on the road to the next city where you just go like, what the hell did I just witness? Because it's crazy.
I'll give you one in particular. Royal Rumble, I want to say it was 2017, was Cena versus Styles for the WWE title. I might have the year wrong, but it was in San
Alamo Dome, I
Antonio.
believe. Yep.
Alamo Dome. So that commentary team, if I have it correctly, was David Otunga, JBL, Mauro Ranallo, and myself. I was attached to that desk to do traffic. So, but what I mean by that is like the advertisements, B-roll, throw to video packages, on cameras, etc. So at that point, when I was calling that Royal Rumble, I'd only been on the team for a couple of weeks. So the direction at that point was, you're not really calling the match bell to bell. You're just handling these, elements of traffic, so to speak. So it's Cena versus AJ Styles for the WWE title with, I think, 50,000 people in attendance. And the directive I'd been given was, don't talk during the match. So I sat there in the Alamo Dome and watched one of the greatest matches I've ever seen. And I didn't have to say anything. And afterwards, I talked to my boss. I was like, should I say something? They're like, yeah, it was kind of weird that you didn't say anything. So it's a little trial and error, and you understand that. But I sat there and I remember Cena sprinting all the way down that long aisle. And I was like, man, this is crazy to watch.
He's already tired.
JBL pointed it out that it was such a masterful match because they never left the ring. They never went outside the ring through that entire match. So I'm really lucky I've gotten to be truly a fan in a situation like that, where I just got to sit there and watch it and marvel at two of the best to ever do it, go at it and put on a clinic. And at the same time, I'm fortunate to say that I've been a part of a lot of great moments and hopefully adding some lyrics to the soundtrack, so to speak. It's humbling. It's really, really difficult, but I'm thrilled that I can take all that experience and put it into Impact Wrestling and put it into No Surrender on the 24th here in Vegas.
And speaking of Impact, before we hit you with some quick questions to get you out of here, I do want to know, what your time at Impact, who's been someone that you've gotten close with, whether it's on the roster or behind the scenes?
I had a relationship with Steve Macklin since 2012 when I started in WWE. He's legitimately just one of my closest friends. Shout out to Eric Tompkins, Kenny Smith, Josh Matthews, Brian Allen, Lampley, Kevin Martin. Like, the guys in the production department are awesome to work with. David Sahadi as well. And Scott D'Amore and Tommy Dreamer have been fabulous to me. And just like I said before, being honest and helping me break old habits and just being reassuring, giving me positive and negative stuff that it's like, hey, this works, this doesn't work. That's been really great. Jimmy Jacobs and Robert Evans on the creative team for putting up with my inane questions and nerdy questions that I have all the time. And Matthew Raywalt being just a great partner and a good friend. So I'm just very fortunate. There have been so many people that have popped up, and Ingrid, our ringside manager, is spectacular to me. So there's a lot of other people that I'm leaving out, but they all know exactly how important they are to me. And I'm just happy with the people that I'm working with. And I think that's something, no matter what anybody does in life, if you're happy with the people that you're surrounded by, it really makes everything a breeze.
No, damn right, and it shows through the product and people watching. So like that makes me happy, because it sounds great, and it's good to know that you're feeling that as well. And let's hit you with a quick speed round. First thought, doesn't have to be. I don't need a 5-minute dialogue, but whatever comes to mind with these questions. You ready to do this?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's go. Best career advice you've ever gotten?
Be patient.
Nice. 2023 in Impact Wrestling will be the year of.
Surprises.
I like it. A phrase that you consider a crutch. Mine's
My
100%. I don't know if I've said it to one of your
sound like
responses.
Bert Kreischer, 100%. I use the word byproduct a lot, and it's new. Like within the last year, I started using it. It's like, oh, this is a byproduct of that. So I got to work on that.
Do you look in the dictionary? Like, how does that work out? Where did it come from?
I can't say that I'm like perusing the dictionary all that much. I was a real nerd about it when I was younger, so I didn't do great on the SATs, but just kind of, there's a lot of words that have stuck.
I
And then
watch a lot of.
recently on the air with Raywalt, I learned that I'd been saying comeuppance wrong for 10 years. So there you are.
What's the proper way? Wait, how were you saying?
I was saying comeuppance, like the Muppets, and it's comeuppance, ANCE. So yeah, I've been getting that wrong for 10 years. No one's perfect.
Listen, I get a lot of my words from First Take and Stephen A. Smith rants, so that's okay. A favorite match you've called in your career?
I'll give a recent one in Impact, Overdrive, Frankie Kazarian versus Josh Alexander for the Impact World Championship. One of the best put together matches I've ever seen, and two absolute pros.
And then my last question, which I'm going to tell you a little bit of info before I ask it. I randomly once tweeted you a video of my son wrestling me and jumping off the couch.
That's you?
That was me.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And you did the voiceover for it. And I was like, this is nuts. When you grow up and you're going to understand that this dude did this for you. So first and foremost, I appreciate that.
Oh,
He's
that's
actually
so cool.
No, it's awesome. And I'm playing the dangerous.
Oh, look out.
Yo, you are not Jeff Hardy.
Shut up, Dad. From the top side takes out his own father.
He's grown up. He's 4 years old now. I still haven't took him to wrestling. No Surrender. An entire weekend of Impact Wrestling is coming to Las Vegas. So in your personal opinion, Tom, is it finally time to take him to see some pro wrestling?
What's your son's name?
Sire.
Sire, now's the time. Ask Dad or Mom or whomever if you can go to No Surrender weekend for Impact Wrestling at Sam's Town Casino in Las Vegas. And if they don't, just lift about $20 to $60 out of their pocket and pick whichever night you want to go to and come have some fun. I am thrilled that this has come full circle because I remember it. I remember recording that and just being like, this will be fun. And this just made my day. Thank you for sharing that with me.
No, it's incredible. If you're watching this on YouTube, we're going to put the clip to end it.
We have to, yeah.
This is amazing. Now I look forward to getting to meet you in person, hopefully with my son. I'm bringing him. I'm making a decision. I'm saying this. I need to say that louder or smaller, quieter because mom's home.
Don't wake him
so,
up. Yeah.
No, mom's home and mom's not with the vibes, but we're going to go to Impact Wrestling.
Valentine's Day just happened. Don't blow all the goodwill that you just built up.
Exactly. Tom, thank you so much for the time, and we look forward to seeing you at No Surrender, my friend.
Appreciate it, man.
Oh, look out.
Yo, you are not Jeff Hardy.
Shut up, Dad. From the top side takes out his own father.
You are not Jeff Hardy.